What's today? February 12th. So we're a little ways into the Oscar race, of course. We're heading into, what's it going to be? The last 3 weeks, I think? The last 2 weeks, I should say, before we get to the weekend of the Oscars here pretty soon. We've had a few things happen here in the Oscar race over the past, I think it's been 2 weeks since my last video, something close to that. Of course, the biggest thing was just over the weekend here. We had the Writers Guild of America Awards, and they went with Call Me By Your Name, the obvious frontrunner and adapted screenplay, and they went with Get Out for original screenplay, which I think I said that last time. So, yeah, so I got that one right. Now, of course, the big thing with WGA we have to remember is that there are certain films, certain screenplays that are not eligible once we get into their nominations. There's all sorts of tricky rules, and you have to be a member of a certain thing, something or other. And Martin McDonagh was not eligible for his screenplay for Three Billboards was not eligible. So I'll tell you what though, I get a feeling now. I'm kind of torn on this myself because I mean, for me, Get Out and Three Billboards are my top two films of the year last year. So if either one of them wins, I'm happy. I mean, for me, I personally, when it comes to the Oscars in this race for original screenplay, first of all, it's going to be the big. I think it's going to be the big deciding vote this year as far as what's going to win Best Picture because, as we've seen the last 5 years, if you're winning Best Picture, you're taking screenplay with you. Even in a year like Birdman, which is kind of a complicated year in that screenplay race, we saw Wes Anderson was really starting to pick up a lot of the awards. He lost the Globe, and that went to Birdman. But he picked up, I believe, Critics' Choice. I think he did. If it wasn't him, then it was no. Okay, I can't remember who won Critics' Choice, but I know that Wes Anderson won WGA and he won the BAFTA for original screenplay. So everybody kind of jumped on that bandwagon. I originally was sticking with Birdman in that category, even when it wasn't the Best Picture frontrunner. For whatever reason, I had Birdman. I don't know what. I can't remember what motive I had. But maybe because it was my favorite of the screenplays there. But I think part of the reason it won, besides being the Best Picture winner, is the screenplay voters, especially when they nominate, they want the talky screenplays, the dialogue-filled ones, the wall-to-wall speaking, almost Tarantinian type screenplay. Which, I mean, of the four big screenplay contenders this year, because we've got The Big Sick also nominated, but that's not going to win. We've got Lady Bird, Get Out, Shape of Water, and Three Billboards. Obviously, I think Three Billboards is the one. That's the one that's the wall-to-wall dialogue. It's got all the big speeches, and it's the talkiest of the movies. Probably if you did an experiment where you said, okay, let's count up all the lines that everybody has in the movie, I think Three Billboards is going to have more lines in it than any other film. I mean, Get Out is it's a great script and everything too, but I think it's more nominated just because of the original concept of it, and less so for the dialogue and all that. And I think the dialogue does play a big factor into how you win this category. Lady Bird has a few really good quippy lines, and again, not a totally 100% original story, because obviously we've seen hundreds and hundreds of coming-of-age films before. A few from that female perspective, for sure. But it's also a chance, of course, to give Greta Gerwig an Oscar. The same can be said for Jordan Peele for Get Out. And if Three Billboards does win Picture, McDonagh is a producer on it, so he will pick up an Oscar there. At the same time, though, Three Billboards looks like it won the Globe. Looks like it'll win BAFTA. At least for now, I'm thinking BAFTA, because Lady Bird and Get Out did not perform very well over there at BAFTA. Neither of them are up for Best Film. They're not up for any technical awards. They're both in for Screenplay. They're both in for an acting award or two in the case of Lady Bird. But that's about it for those films. They didn't get a whole lot of love. Neither of them got in for director, I believe. So at least last I checked. But anyways, we'll get into BAFTA predictions later on this week, because the ceremony is actually on Sunday the 18th. I think that's the date. Pretty sure. So before then, we'll have final predictions up for that. But before we get to that, though, I wanted to kind of talk about a couple of things developing later on that's been developing here actually in the last couple of weeks in the Oscar race here. Now, we continue to see, I think the odds are still favoring Shape of Water to win Best Picture at this rate. And, obviously when you look at it, it's up for film editing, which, as we've known, is a big determiner of Best Picture winners in the past. It's up for 3 acting prizes in this case. It's up for screenplay. It's up for director. Obviously, it's up for picture. And those are the 5 kind of key concepts and branches of the Academy you need to get that big support. Now, obviously, 3 Billboards has picture, it has 3 acting prizes, it has original screenplay, and it has editing, but it missed out, of course, for director. Get Out has acting, directing, film, and screenplay. Does not have editing. The same goes for Lady Bird. So, and one other interesting thing, though, too, I thought about this, and I don't know why I've been sitting on this. Is actually a pretty kind of cool idea here. Film editing is not, if I can say it right, Get Out and Lady Bird are not nominated for film editing. And we saw the last time that happened where it won Best Picture without editing was Birdman back in 2014. That was 3 years ago. Now, if you go back, Ordinary People was the last film before that to win Best Picture without an editing prize back in 1980. So that's a long time. That's a big, long stretch of films there. Where even films like Rain Man, which you don't specifically think of editing achievements, that was nominated. Or something like, what was another one I was thinking of the other day? I'm like, oh, that's right, it got in for editing. Like Braveheart. Well, that's okay. That's a more obvious one. But there's films like Rain Man and a couple other ones there in the mid '80s where I'm like Terms of Endearment. I'm like, I don't necessarily see that as a big editing accomplishment, but they're always nominated at least. Funny enough, before Ordinary People, you have to go back 3 years to Annie Hall, and that was another one that was not up for film editing, but it still won Best Picture. It was also up for the key acting prizes, up for director, up for screenplay, obviously picture. So, hey, 3 years was all it took between 77 and 80 for that editing rule to be broken again. Now, obviously, there was a bigger stretch between 80 and 2014, but it's 3 years later. Are we going to see that editing rule break again? And now, past 2017 is when we see that, 10, 20, maybe 30 plus years before that editing rule is broken again. If for that to happen, either Get Out or Lady Bird would have to win Best Picture. That'd be a cool thing, though, to have that hold up. But right now, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Well, a few developments here. Obviously, number one, Get Out, I think is it's looking good at this rate that it's gonna have a few votes for sure in that screenplay category. It'll definitely have votes from some of the black community in the Academy. They support the movie. Of course, there's white people who support it too. I'm not trying to separate the lines here and separate the ethnic classes here. That's obviously not it. I mean, somebody like me, I love the movie. So, but anyways, it'll have that. It'll have at the same time a few detractors too, because there are some kind of older guard in the Academy who don't necessarily see Get Out as the new Silence of the Lambs or something like that. And it's very 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 rare for a film and that's in the horror or thriller genre to win this top prize. Yeah, it did. At the same time, we have to mention too, it did win DGA for first time director for Jordan Peele, which is obviously that went to what's his name from Lion last year, Garth something. Oh, Garth from Wayne's World, that's who it was. Whoever it was, yeah, he's doing the Mary Magdalene movie, but he won that. Of course, he wasn't nominated at the Oscars, but I know after he got nominated for both feature directing at DGA and also for first time, that was like a big thing. All of a sudden, he was getting in for director. That's what everybody thought. But I was smarter than that. I went with who'd I go with? I went with Todd Haynes. No, not Todd Haynes. Whoever it was. I didn't go with Mel Gibson. He was the only one I missed. Can't remember who it was. I didn't put in Scorsese either that year. That's everybody kind of bounced back to Scorsese after a while for Silence, but I knew that wasn't happening. So I can't remember who it was I put down. Oh well. Regardless. Anyway, so yeah, the WGA win. That's a big sign, and plus, Get Out won Critics' Choice for original screenplay too, where it took down Shape of Water, and it took down 3 Billboards, it took down Lady Bird, it took down all the other ones there. And interesting enough, we've seen outside of the Globes that Lady Bird has just gone home empty-handed every time from the rest of these televised awards. Didn't win anything at SAG, didn't win anything at Critics' Choice, obviously didn't win DGA, didn't win at the Writers Guild. So it's really struggling here, and personally, I don't think it's going to win anything at BAFTA either. It's just the strength over there for that movie just didn't show up. Now, obviously, since Saoirse is from Ireland and it's the British Academy after all, there is a small chance for an upset there. But you've also got Sally Hawkins in that category, who's from Great Britain, so she's got the same small chance. But Frances has been running this game since that Big Globe win back in January, and I don't know. Three Billboards was the outside of Shape of Water. I think Three Billboards had more nominations than any other film over there at BAFTA. So, yeah, that film's got strength. It's not like Three Billboards only got actress, picture, and a couple others. No, it got a lot of support. So, yeah, I think that yeah, like I said, the 4 acting races. We've still got some people who are thinking Allison Janney's vulnerable for supporting actress. I don't think so. Especially since I, Tonya, missed out for picture. It's in for actress and editing, but missed out for picture, surprisingly. Instead, they go with something like Phantom Thread, which, for the life of me, I can't figure that one out still. Since it's not up for picture, it's kind of a rally vote. Like, hey, we still love this movie. And I think that's what's going to help Allison Janney to the stage there, too. Outside of the SAG and the Globe and the Critics' Choice trifecta there. I think she will win BAFTA too, because BAFTA really liked I, Tonya, and it was probably, if they had, because at BAFTA they have only 5 Best Film nominees there. If it was the sliding scale like the Oscars and it went from 5 to 10, I, Tonya would have been in there over at BAFTA. I can guarantee you that. Anyway, so I think Allison Janney's also got BAFTA too. So, I mean, I can't remember the last time we would have seen somebody win Globes, Critics' Choice, BAFTA, SAG, and then lose the Oscar. Nothing in recent memory is coming to mind. Obviously, Adrian Brody was back in for The Pianist. He won Best Actor there without winning anything. He didn't win Critics' Choice. He didn't win the Globe or the BAFTA or anything. Even though The Pianist did well at BAFTA that year, it didn't take Best Actor, and that was the only major prize he won that year was the last one for the Oscar. And it was Daniel Day-Lewis and Jack Nicholson who were kind of splitting votes there, with Nicholson picking up the Globe over all the guys in the drama category. Day-Lewis won SAG. I believe he won BAFTA too. I can't remember who Critics' Choice went to. I don't know if they went with Day-Lewis or if they went with somebody else. Because I don't think Nicholson won Critics' Choice either. I think he had the Globe, and kind of a similar thing too was About Schmidt was nominated all over the place that year across all the big ceremonies, especially the Globes. They really liked it there, and it was kind of a rally, kind of a similar thing. But it was like a rally thing of, hey, maybe if Jack wins this, it's a way to support the movie too, since only he and Kathy Bates were nominated when it should have been in for like screenplay or even. I mean, it was a hard year for directing, but I mean, I could make an argument for Alexander Payne to be nominated that year too, alongside picture and I like the music score in that too. There's a few other things. Cinematography also could have been. Anyway, so but that didn't work out. So Laurie Metcalf, also it would be a way of rallying and supporting Lady Bird, but I don't know. Allison Janney, she is just between the two. Number one, she's way more popular as an actress. She's been working long. Well, as far as I know, no. Laurie was there first. I'm sorry. I was thinking, In retrospect, though, it feels like Allison Janney has been consistently working hard since she was, since day one. Whereas Metcalf is she's gone over to Broadway and she's done some stuff over on the opposite coast. So she's not always in California, in the Valley with all the voters and stuff. So she doesn't feel as personable to them as Allison Janney is, who mostly I think works back on the West Coast for the most part. And again, I think obviously, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of passion votes out there for Lady Bird, but I think there's a kind of passion, and again, don't get me wrong here, but I think that passion is really, really on the female voters' minds for sure. Whereas I, Tonya both picks up the male and the female support there. I think there is the passion between both the genders there when it comes to that film. And I really like that one too. So I would love to see Allison Janney take that one. She was the performance of the year for me in that category. I still like Laurie Metcalf, and personally, I think I did this on a previous video. I talked about, hey, what if I did my own list of who I would nominate, having seen what I've seen so far this year, which is just about everything. I didn't see Blade Runner. I didn't see, the Denzel movie. I haven't seen that one. But I kind of put a list together. I didn't even put Laurie Metcalf in my 5 for supporting actress. She's good in the movie, like I said, but anyway, I think that one's locked, stocked, and ready to go. Now, and I mentioned this a while ago with Sam Rockwell for supporting actor, and to me, this kind of digs into the theory, of course, that we've been talking about here for pretty much the last month and a half or so, with this 3 Billboards backlash. Now, I still believe the backlash is there. I mean, obviously, there are people who are just this movie just didn't go. It just didn't work for them, and that's fine. And then there's people, I think, because I saw the movie, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how I want to structure this whole point here. But I saw the movie a third time. It's the third time I've seen it. I love the movie still. And this was the first time I'd seen it since the backlash really, really started. And kicked in, and we saw its effects so far with McDonough missing for director. I think maybe the backlash had part to do with that. It also could be just the director's branch they do really enjoy Paul Thomas Anderson, and McDonough is not as well known as a director. He's more known as a writer. So I think it all kind of boils together into the same pot, and that's the reason why he didn't turn up an Oscar nomination there. But having seen the movie a third time, I get it. And I think this has happened with some people who've seen the movie late after this backlash has started, where if you want to watch the movie and you want to look for it, you want to look for the kind of racist factors in the movie, you can look for it and you can find it. I went into I didn't watch it specifically for the purpose of saying, asking myself, is this, a really racist view? They're not giving due credit to the African American characters in the film, and so on and so forth. And I looked at it and I'm like, if you go in with that mindset and that that determination to find that and to see that, you can see it. I mean, I'll give you that. But for me, part of the thing that I think, if this backlash was deep enough to where the movie is not even close to in the running for picture, it's not, every last category it's nominated for, it's affected by this backlash. If that was the case, how does Sam Rockwell keep winning all these supporting actor prizes? I mean, he's the one, because of course his character is the one that, his character arc is the one they're criticizing. And his character is really the one that's responsible for the torturing, supposedly. It's all off screen, by the way, too, of the African American characters in the film. Some of which we never see, some of which it's only implied, and so on and so forth. But anyways, you would think, since he's the one directly linked to that, he'd be the one that all of a sudden becomes vulnerable here. But he still keeps winning. And again, I think it comes down to a popularity contest, because Willem Dafoe in the Florida Project, yeah, it's got its passion votes out there for sure, and I like that one a lot too. But Willem Dafoe he's always been kind of a little bit of an outsider. When you look at it, he's not consistently nominated. He's not consistently lauded like the way Sam Rockwell is in every. I mean, there's people who still give him proper or give him good reviews for like Iron Man 2, where he was probably one of the worst things in that movie. Sorry, but I mean, even he couldn't save that movie as the villain there. No, so there's even people that give him a pass for that. So yeah, so I mean, he's obviously he's a very successful actor in that way. He does the tentpole movies, he does the really small budget movies, and one I didn't see until last year was the way back. I think that's what it's called, right? The one with him and Steve Carell, and I forget who the mom is in that one, but there's it's kind of the summer working at the swimming pool or swim park, whatever it is. And yeah, he's got to be one of the most likable characters in screen history in that movie. So obviously, yeah, he's given great performances before, and when you get somebody like that who's finally nominated, sometimes they just win on the first draw. It's happened before with I'm trying to think who it was. Like wasn't there one last year that did that? No, it wasn't. No, Casey has been nominated before. There was somebody I was thinking. Oh, Mahershala, yeah, from last year for Moonlight. because he was on House of Cards, he was on the other Netflix show Luke Cage and a few others, where everything he was in, everybody always gave him good reviews, and obviously he did a great job in House of Cards and stuff. But yeah, he's one where he was he was height of his popularity, and now he gets a good role in that movie, and all of a sudden, bam, there he is on the Oscar stage. So that is that's one thing to consider too. And then also you've got people. Okay, you've got your Willem Dafoe supporters. You've also got people who like Christopher Plummer and All the Money in the World, and the kind of politics of that movie and his coming in at the last minute to replace Kevin Spacey and all that. I think there's people that want to vote for that. There's also people who want to vote for Richard Jenkins for Shape of Water, since he's another one who's consistently been in if not great movies, he's always been good in the movies he's in. Kind of like he's 20 years Sam Rockwell's elder or something like that. So he's and he's been doing more work than Sam has. Obviously lifetime wise. So yeah, there's definitely the thing there in that. But when we're looking for upsets in these categories, we need to see that one contender who's got everything going for them. Where even if they lose a couple of these precursor awards that are televised, like the Globes and SAG and Critics' Choice and so on, they have to have some kind of a foothold somewhere where if they win a BAFTA, like Christoph Waltz did, or he won the Globe too, so that's fun. Or Rylance from a couple years ago, where he was, really the only other in that category that year. Yeah, like Christian Bale. Yeah, he was nominated. There's people who always vote for Christian Bale, but he didn't have the substantial, I think, funds behind him to take down Stallone. Who else was nominated? The other two didn't have it either. So Rylance was kind of the one who had, he was in a Spielberg film. It was a Best Picture contender. Well, it was a Best Picture nominee, I should say. It wasn't really in the race to win. Respected theater actor, and so on and so forth. He'd done a few films in the past that had been pretty well received and everything. And, there was, enough going for him there to take down Stallone, who, when you look at it, he'd won, how many hundreds of Razzies through the years and stuff, and had taken some wild turns and twists in his career. But anyway, so that's the thing for me is this backlash. I still think it does exist. Obviously, I don't think there's people that are, obviously there was kind of an effort to take down La La Land last year, but that it also fueled in that there were, like I said, kind of earlier on in the year, there was a stringent of people who went to see La La Land after the nominations who I think went on Twitter or went on Facebook or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, and I've read reviews for it where they say, yeah, I was excited for the movie, I was excited to see it, but then after I'd heard all this great buzz, I got really, really excited for it, and then I saw it, and it was good, but it wasn't as good as all everybody else was saying. So I think that was definitely a big thing that fueled the backlash. And then all of a sudden, it's much easier than if you're in that boat where you see it late, it's not as good as everybody else says it is. So now you're like, yeah, I would rather see something else, take over. But yeah, that's the thing though, is that so far has not really happened with Shape of Water, not to a large extent. No. Now losing WGA is a little weakness in the armor there, but it was never going to be a big contender anyways. Like if because Guillermo also won DGA, that was no surprise. Like if he had lost DGA, that would have been huge. That would have been a big game changer. And all of a sudden, Shape of Water might end up with just a couple tech categories and nothing else. But as we've seen, he's continued to just cruise right along through the season here. He's picked up pretty much every big televised event here for directing, including DGA. We mentioned, Frances is a lock for actress. Gary Oldman's taking Best Actor, so that's done too. We already mentioned Call Me by Your Name for Adapted Screenplay. That's another one that's got its it's got its supporters and got its fans out there. And I think it's another case of kind of like Aitani, where you've got that passion for it, and enough people see it and they vote for it. I think it's a win for that movie. And plus, Molly's Game, Mudbound, Disaster Artist, Logan, the rest of them really haven't won much else for some of the other prizes. So, yeah. And plus, it also, Call Me By Your Name also won the Scripter Award, which has correctly predicted adapted screenplay for the last, how many years? I was counting it up. It got Big Short right, it got Moonlight right, it got 12 Years a Slave, Argo, Descendants. I think you have to go back to, Oh, I looked it up, and I had it, and now I lost it. But it got Descendants right, got Social Network. I think it was Precious. They missed Precious. They went with the other one that year that everybody liked. For whatever reason, I got Precious right that year at the Oscars. I don't know what it was. But that was really the first time I was like actually taking it seriously, predicting Oscars 2009, clear back almost 8 years ago now. Jesus, where does time go? But yeah, that one I can't remember who they went with, but it was yeah, the scripter has been right, yeah, since then. So that's almost 10 years that they've been right. So yeah, so that's definitely going to happen. I don't see that not happening. Otherwise, yeah, no new developments in cinematography. It looks like that's still going to be Blade Runner. Yeah, unless we get a big report all of a sudden, what's his name? Roger Deakins all of a sudden gets a huge amount of backlash on him for whatever reason. Something like that happens, then yeah, then that changes things. Costumes, Phantom Thread, that one's done. Editing is Dunkirk, that one's done. Makeup is Darkest Hour, that one's done. Production design and score are going to be for Shape of Water. Song and animated feature are going to be for Coco. The only thing with song is Mighty River. Mary J. Blige, who's nominated in supporting actress, she co-wrote the song, I believe, or was a lyricist on it, or sang it. I don't know. I still haven't seen Mudbound yet. I don't know what's wrong with me. I haven't seen it yet. But there's a chance that she wins that. But it's a small one. This Is Me won the Globe for original song, but I don't take a whole lot of stock in that. There's been a number of songs that have won the Globe that lost the Oscar, like the U2 song from Mandela, from that movie. Wasn't there just one a couple of years ago they got wrong? I can't remember what it was now, but they got Spectre right. That was kind of a surprise win. Was the one before that Mandela? No. They've gotten it wrong a few times. Yeah, the sound categories, those go to Dunkirk. Visual effects, I think it's still War for the Planet of the Apes. I just don't see enough. Obviously Blade Runner has more nominations, and Star Wars has more nominations in that category. But they're kind of, the sci-fi elements of those two, I think, are cutting into each other. Plus the fact that Blade Runner was not a big financial hit, which sometimes affects the voters' minds. Also, Star Wars kind of had a bit of a really split reaction from the audiences, from some of the diehard fans at least. So that one I think contributes a little bit, but same time, they've never gone for a Planet of the Apes movie in this category, so they could go for it now, but there's no guarantee there. But for me personally, I think I'd like to see it happen, and I think there's enough. Yeah, there's enough of an outcry out there of people saying, "Hey, honor the trilogy in this way by giving it visual effects for the last time." All right, documentary I think still goes, since Jane was not nominated. I think it goes to Faces Places, but I'd look out for Icarus and Strong Island. Those two are Netflix films, and Netflix, they don't usually win this category, but they're ones to look out for. And maybe Strong Island and Icarus kind of cancel each other out from the Netflix thing and all that, but still, it's something to consider. Foreign film, I think it's A Fantastic Woman. The Square and Loveless are kind of have their detractors, and they might cut into each other's votes too, so I think that's the way that one's going. The short categories, I'm still thinking they're probably going to be pretty easy to predict. Dear Basketball for animated short, give Kobe Bryant his Oscar. Edith and Eddie for documentary short, that one was really the only popular one. DeKalb Elementary, I think, still takes live action short from the subject matter. And again, it was one, even before the big nominations morning, it was one everybody said it's already got a lockdown. So yes, once again, this leaves picture and screenplay as the two categories this year that are really up for grabs. The rest of them, we've got it down to one, maybe two contenders, and maybe three for a couple of them, yeah. But yeah, this one, original screenplay, one of four films could win. For picture, I'm thinking one of four. And like I said, I think these two are going to line up, whatever happens in this category. For the most part, I think they'll line up unless they go and they're thinking, okay, let's give Jordan Peele something, so Get Out would win this, and then Picture would probably go to Shape of Water in that case. Or Lady Bird wins here to give Greta Gerwig an Oscar, and Shape of Water gets Picture or something like that. Anyways, so that all being said, I'm sticking with Three Billboards here. Now, obviously there's no guarantee that Three Billboards, if it had been nominated at WGA, it would have won. As we've seen at Critics' Choice, if Three Billboards is nominated and Get Out is nominated, Get Out won there. And at the same time with the Globes, we have to remember, Get Out was not nominated for Screenplay, and Three Billboards won without it in competition. So that's something to consider, too. And when Shape of Water and Lady Bird, and I think in both cases The Big Sick, were nominated, Get Out was able to beat them all. So that's something else to consider there. And I think, let's see what BAFTA does. If BAFTA, which BAFTA I think does go to Three Billboards, it's McDonagh is from Ireland. He's much bigger over there than he is over here. Very well respected over there. I think they'll give him Screenplay, and I think he'll win for Picture too. So he gets a couple of BAFTAs. I think that's what they'll do. If for whatever reason, if BAFTA does not go for McDonagh for Screenplay, I think I'll, I don't know. I think, that'll be tough. If BAFTA goes for Get Out for Screenplay when it only has Daniel Kaluuya as its only other nomination, as far as I can recall, then okay, that's a sign that maybe Get Out is gonna take Screenplay. And at the same time, it's not, like I said a few videos ago, when Woody Allen won for Midnight in Paris that year, and The Artist was also up for Picture and up in the same category for Screenplay, everybody and their dog knew that The Artist, conveniently enough I say dog because, the dog and The Artist, but everybody knew that was not going to win for original screenplay. No way. Not a silent film. No. I mean, it was lucky to be nominated for sure. I mean, it was, I don't know. Original was pretty, it was kind of hit and miss that year. There wasn't a whole big gaggle of competition and other screenplays that could have been nominated. Not like this year. This year was nuts. But yeah, The Artist, that was one where Midnight in Paris had won everything. And it was clear that The Artist was not going to win screenplay. It was just, it was a silent film. And silent films, they don't win screenplay. Never. Never ever. Well, maybe the first Oscars, but that was clear back. So, but yeah, in the meantime here, like I said, Three Billboards is the more dialogue-heavy screenplay. It's, more of the memorable quippy lines, Tarantinian-type dialogue for sure, or even a Coen Brothers-type dialogue you can imagine here. I wouldn't actually be surprised if some of the voters put it down. Obviously, I think they put the name of the screenwriter on the ballot, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's people out there in the Academy who aren't paying too close attention, and they, kind of think that maybe it's the Coen Brothers who wrote this script. I mean, it's got Frances McDormand in it. Woody has worked with the Coen Brothers before. Sam hasn't, I believe, but he looks like he would fit right into that ensemble they usually have in their films. Yeah, it's got Carter Burwell doing the score. He's the usual worker with Coen Brothers. The only thing is, if Roger Deakins was doing cinematography on this one, then yeah, there's some voters who would, be convinced that the Coen Brothers still wrote it. But it's still, that's just a fascinating little thing there to consider. So, and the Coen Brothers, they've only won twice for screenplay. They're talented enough writers to where I think the Academy would like to give them another one in the future. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they're stupid and they think it's the Coen Brothers who wrote it, but it's very, very Coen-esque, if you will. So I think it's definitely one to consider there. I still do have it winning screenplay because I'm still on this screenplay and picture are going to line up thing, which they have the last 5 years. I'm gonna stick with that. And as I've said, we've seen the director thing is still haunting me to this day. I mean, if McDonagh had been nominated for director, it wouldn't be a question of who's going to win picture. It would have been it would be Three Billboards. But there's more cases of Best Picture winners without director nominated than there are Best Picture winners without a SAG Ensemble nomination. There's only one of those, Braveheart, but you've got Argo, you've got Driving Miss Daisy, you've got, I looked up the rest of them here, Wings, the very first Oscar winner for Best Picture, was not up for the equivalent of director. A couple other ones. Grand Hotel was not up for director. But again, that was kind of a special circumstances one. There was one other one. I can't remember what it is now. That one picture without a director nomination. I think it was. Was it Greatest Show on Earth? No, that wasn't it. It was something from that time period in the 40s or 50s there, I believe. Or no. No, because yeah, there was stuff in the 60s. 60s was almost 100% in that decade of director picture lining up. It was like, yeah, almost every film from the 60s, from 60 to 69, director and picture lined up. I think the only case would be 67 for Mike Nichols splitting the prize with In the Heat of the Night with Norman Jewison. But otherwise, the rest of them were all pretty lined up. So, yeah, I think it was from the 40s or the 50s. It was another example. But I believe I counted 5 times that a film has won Best Picture without a director nomination. So 5-1 odds favor that, in that case, of these really irregularities. And then at the same time, though, there are, I believe, more than 5 examples of Best Picture winners not nominated for film editing. Since the film editing categories existed. Obviously, if you count, obviously if you go back, there's, how many years of the Oscars before film editing was a category. But, and obviously that's not fair to say that. But I believe there are, since the film editing categories existed, more than 5 Best Picture winners not even nominated there. Like Godfather Part 2 was not, surprisingly, not even nominated there. We had, like I said, Annie Hall and Ordinary People, Birdman. That's 4 already. I'll keep thinking. I think there's some more. But anyways, yeah, we don't have time to look through the entire list now. But I believe there's more than 5 in that category that have won Best Picture without that editing nod. But anyways, regardless, though, I'm thinking, yeah, it's still going to come down to those 4: Lady Bird, Get Out, 3 Billboards, and Shape of Water at the Oscars for picture as well. There is, I don't know, for whatever reason now, I'm hearing a few people are going back to Dunkirk. Why? On what basis? On what, what information have you learned that all of a sudden Dunkirk becomes the front runner when it's not up for a screenplay prize, not up for an acting prize, not up for, didn't win or even was nominated at WGA and it was eligible, didn't win DGA, didn't win anything at the Globes, only won 1 prize at Critics' Choice, wasn't nominated for any of the major categories at SAG, and couldn't even win the stunt award there in an easy category. Yeah, on what motive, on what basis are you putting Dunkirk out front, you fools? I don't know who it was. I can't remember who it was I read. I think it was Chris Tapley or somebody went back to Dunkirk now all of a sudden, but maybe he's just throwing a line out there just to see who's going to bite on it. But still, I don't get it. I mean, like I said, this wasn't my favorite film of the year. And I would be a little upset if it won Best Picture, but still, it's, I don't know. There's no evidence backing up the fact that this is going to win. None whatsoever. Anyway, so, yeah, so now to a couple of these more recent developments here that are not associated with other award shows. Now, all of a sudden, I think it was about a week ago, I read that there's some people that are really slandering Guillermo del Toro with plagiarism on the Shape of Water screenplay, because evidently there's a stage play from the late 60s that has a very similar idea to what the film's about. But I can't remember the full story right now, but it's the same idea of a worker who finds a sea creature in a lab that she works at night, and she wants to rescue the sea creature. Yeah, that's basically The Shape of Water. Now, obviously, it goes deeper than that in the film, and what I saw was just a brief 1 or 2 sentence description of the play. So, and it was a really, really, off-Broadway play that wasn't by any means a big success. So, as far as I know, I'd never heard of the play before, anyways. But if there is a playbook that exists, I'd like to, see it just to see how close it is. Now, I'll tell you what, though. I don't think it broke in time, because I think the WGA, they'd already voted on their screenplay prize, so Shape of Water was already not, it wasn't like Shape of Water was 100% ahead, and then this news broke, and all of a sudden it's, not going to win. But the Writers Guild, I've mentioned it before, the writers, especially in the Writers Guild, are, and I don't say this just to, to be defiant against it, but they are some of the biggest wussies. I mean, the smallest drop of a hat comment about them, or or something financial or something this or that or less points or something, they go on strike and they are not happy at all for like the next 5 years. All of a sudden, every angry screenwriter in Hollywood happens to be in the WGA or happens to be in this or that. But they are very, very easy to upset. I'll put it that way. Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. They are very easily upset. So a plagiarism thing against something like this, in the Best Picture category, when it is right now, according to most odds, the favorite to win, that really, I think, could affect some voters. Now, not every voter. Obviously, the actors are not affected by this. Some of the directors are not necessarily. Maybe some of the writer-directors maybe have read this and they're like, oh, okay. And obviously, Del Toro and Fox Searchlight and everybody else has kind of come out and said, no, we never heard of the play and this isn't plagiarism. So that's something to consider too. As we keep going here, we're starting to lose light, so I'll try to wrap this up as quick as I can here. I don't have a whole bunch else to say here. But, obviously this isn't as big a backlash as, say, the stuff against Three Billboards. That's obviously way out ahead of this. But it's something to consider. And now, the initial story, like I said, I think that broke close to a week ago. And then, since then, I've read a follow-up on that, and somebody else has come out and said, yeah, I've read the playbook or something. It was somebody who was associated with the original play or was associated with the family or something. And they came out and said, yeah, it's plagiarism. So for now, that's not going away. I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's enough to mount enough assault to take Shape of Water down, especially when you've got Three Billboards, which has a bigger controversy around it. Why all of a sudden that one gets the big leap out of it? Obviously I don't think 2 and 2 equals 5 in that case. But, like I said, if the writers, all of a sudden, they're not having it with Shape of Water, and they want to put it, in the Best Picture category, all of a sudden they're like 8, or 7, or 6. That could really swing the vote, and something like Get Out, Lady Bird, or Three Billboards could all of a sudden get a big jump in those ballots, and all of a sudden, something like Three Billboards, you could also see, this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about the preferential ballot being big, as you go, branch by branch, how some branches can really, really help a movie and they'll hurt a separate movie. And maybe that separate movie gets helped by another branch. Like, for example, this year, and we're just saying theoretically here, obviously every voter votes independently, or so we think, and come to their own conclusions on how they rank Best Picture. But let's say the Production Design Guild, or whatever, that branch of the Academy, the art directors branch or whatever. Let's say they're all, let's just say it's 100% just to make the math right. Okay, so that's obviously going to be a smaller branch than the writers branch, which has 2 categories. Production design only has 1. So the art directors branch, yeah, let's say they all put Shape of Water at number 1. And let's say, I don't know, roughly, let's say 200 people in that branch. And they put Three Billboards, which wasn't a big achievement in art direction, and maybe they just didn't like the movie and so on. Let's say they're at number 5 or 6 on the ballot. Right in the middle there. But not number 2, not number 3. But then you have the writers branch who, hey, all of a sudden we're hearing Del Toro. And remember, these are people that do get kind of upsetted easily. Some of them do. And it's not 100% crossover between Writers Guild and a few of the people that go on strike and the branch, obviously. But let's say, 100% of them vote for Three Billboards because, hey, they're kind of ticked off that McDonough didn't get in for director. He's a great writer. They like the screenplay a lot. Maybe they like the movie better. I don't know. And like I said, each person votes differently. But if it's 500 votes at number 1 for this movie and 200 for this one, and Shape of Water all of a sudden is 8 or 7 on the writers' ballots, and that's more ballots than the 5 and 6 votes for Three Billboards on the art director's ballots, if you're following me here, boom, big sweep for Three Billboards and a bigger advantage there. So yeah, I think that's something to consider here. Anyway, so yeah, I'm starting to think here. One other thing too, which is for me something, since I do like Three Billboards better as a movie. Nothing against Shape of Water. It's in my top 5. It's I think a very, very great film. But one thing I'm starting to see pick up now more so is that the Me Too movement, and this is again I've kind of I've gone back on this point several other times. Back in November, in early November, when I picked Three Billboards to win Best Picture, I was the first one out there, or one of the very first. Anyways, out there to pick this one and kind of, put the flag down for Three Billboards to win. Part of it was that I'd read up on the movie that it was about a mother getting revenge on the police department for the rape and murder of her daughter. Now, especially in this Me Too movement where we've seen Harvey Weinstein and Charlie Rose and many of these other big figures, rape was a word that came up quite frequently in some of these. And Paul Haggis is another one kind of more recently, where the word rape was very, very evident in a lot of the accusations. That, if you're going to point to a movie this year that benefits the most from the Me Too movement, if it's not Lady Bird, which is written, directed, and stars a female, and is from the female perspective, and so on, it's going to be Three Billboards, because you've got that defiant leading performance from Frances McDormand. She herself is a supporter of this and everything. Plus, we even had on the Golden Globe stage Salma Hayek, who personally I don't think is I don't see her as a big supporter of this kind of movie. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but whatever. But she even yelled out "Time's Up" on the stage at the Golden Globes. So, I mean, wow. And then plus, like I've mentioned a couple times too, Barbra Streisand, her reaction to seeing Three Billboards win was she was ecstatic to see that movie win. So this, obviously, and I've said many times, this movie is very popular with the actors branch, the biggest branch in the Academy. We have to consider that too. There's also detractors in the acting branch, for sure. It's not 100%, like I said. So, but yeah, if you've got the actors behind you, that's a big thing. And I think when we were talking about earlier about that, how one branch of the Academy can win you Best Picture, I think part of the reason La La Land lost Best Picture last year was not everybody in the acting branch liked La La Land. And we saw Moonlight was nominated at SAG for the Ensemble Prize. It also had a couple other individual nominations there. Mahershala had won most of the critics' prizes, and he won a few of the precursors here and there. Obviously, we had, what's his name at the Globes win. And Dev Patel won at BAFTA. So there were a couple other, examples there. But still, Mahershala, for the most part, had won mostly everything, with a couple exceptions. And yeah, overall, it's Naomi Harris, and you had Janelle Monáe, or what, isn't that her name? Janelle Monáe? She was in Hidden Figures as well. She was in that one. Yeah, and plus, it was, it was that alternative movie, where if you didn't like La La Land, you like Moonlight. So yeah, that's another thing. And one more thing, too, and maybe this is just my Midwestern mentality speaking here, but for all the people who are criticizing the movie and saying the movie's garbage for the way it treats African Americans, you have to remember. And McDonough has also said this in interviews. He says, "I didn't write this to go against black people in the Midwest." He said, "I wrote this because it's a reflection of how it is." And I can say, living in the Midwest, that there are people that I know. I won't name them individually because people get after them. But there are people I know who, they don't go as far as the Sam Rockwell character does, but, they view people of different ethnicities, and it's not just African Americans, it's also Hispanic Americans and other, foreigners and immigrants and so on. They view them as second class. They view them as beneath them. It's a reflection of how some people, not everybody, but some people think in the Midwest. So, it's a movie, now obviously, like I said, the focus of the movie is on Frances McDormand and her getting revenge for her dead daughter and everything. But the movie also has something to say about race, saying, an ideal Hollywood where we've solved the race problem, which I don't think we have 100%. I don't think we've solved it out there. I don't think we solved it on the East Coast. I don't think we definitely haven't solved it here in the Midwest. There's this kind of mentality out there that, in Hollywood at least, and this is just, again, from the outsider perspective, there's this mentality out there that out in Hollywood and on the West Coast, they have solved racism. Everything is 100% fine and all that. So, like I said, that's just the outsider perspective there. But anyways, I bet that's not true. I bet that's not 100%. And I definitely know that's not 100% true here in the Midwest. So, the movie has something to say about race and saying how we think that we've kind of, especially in the last 5-10 years, we've really started cracking down on it. And we've started to really try to give more minorities, including women and including Asian Americans and including Hispanic Americans and Native Americans and so on, trying to give them more opportunities, and not just in the film world, but in the business world and in the commercial world and so on and so forth. But we're not there yet. We're not at the 100% everybody's equal yet. So, if you're going to support a movie this year that has something to say about race and how we're not there yet, obviously you can support Get Out, but Three Billboards also has something to say about that. And McDonough, if you listen to his conversations, you listen to his interviews, he says, I base this around what I've seen and what I know, which is race is still a problem, and we're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to work our way through it, especially here in the Midwest. Personally, I'm not somebody who is against minorities. I support minorities as long as they're good people, which, obviously you have to go person by person there. But for the most part, I don't see a problem with minorities. I've never had a bad experience in that way. I never have, ever. And personally, for me, I've never worked under a male. I've always had a female boss. Just saying. So yeah, that's just for me. Anyways, that's my case. I know that's not every case, but anyways, what I'm really saying here is just that there is kind of this I don't know how I want to phrase this. This kind of mentality out there that because the movie looks at race as a unresolved issue and the movie itself doesn't have a big speech about it, all of a sudden it's racist. And I don't agree with that, and I think people are kind of missing that whole point. The point, I think, and I did arrive at this conclusion after the third watch, too, of the movie, McDonough, and after reading his interviews, too, that really helped. McDonough is looking at race in America in this movie, not 100%, obviously it's kind of a subplot in the movie, it's not the main focus. But he's looking at it and saying, we are not there yet. We're not 100% on the race equality thing. We're still working on it. So, in that way, voting for the movie supports that idea, and supports the idea that we haven't arrived yet. We're still working on it, and we're going to keep working on it. And I think if you're really supporting minorities, especially in this year, and you're really going after that ideal, that we want to be 100% equal on this, Three Billboards is a movie that should get a vote. It should. Anyway, so again, that's me, and it took me 3 watches to land on that, and it took several interviews with McDonough that I've read over the past couple of weeks to arrive at that. So, obviously, if you see the movie once and you don't get that, you're not there, and you're not going to watch it again, then okay, it's not going to happen. So anyways, but yeah, like I said, I've seen more of an uptick here in the past couple of weeks of people saying, hey, the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, if there's a movie this year that really capitalizes on those and is a big supporter of those, it's Three Billboards. And also it's got the Screen Actors Guild win. It won every award there that it was nominated for except one. It won every prize it was up for at the Golden Globes except for a couple. So, and it did, it got a couple big acting prizes at Critics' Choice. And it was nominated at DGA. It wasn't eligible for WGA, but if it was, it probably would have been nominated. I can't guarantee that it would have won, but it would have definitely been in the conversation. And right now, it looks like it's going to clean up okay at BAFTA. It's not going to win everything over there, but I think it'll do better than some people say. Like I said, we'll get into those predictions another time. All right, can you see me still? Is it just the reflection off the screen now? Yeah, pretty much. So I'm going to cut it off there, yeah. So anyways, that's really all I've got to say. I'm still on the Three Billboards bandwagon to win Best Picture. I'm still thinking it's going to happen. I think that SAG rule is still in effect this year. If La La Land couldn't do it last year, I don't see how Shape of Water does it this year. With the same couple nominations, the same key misses. It's also, as far as these other technical prizes, it won PGA, so did La La Land. Won DGA, so did La La Land. Was not nominated at SAG for Ensemble, neither was La La Land. So on and so forth. Won Critics' Choice, so did La La Land. So, yeah. I could go on and on about this, but I think you guys get the point. So, anyways, yeah, let me know. Anybody else has seen the movie? Let me know if you share my sentiment on this with this whole race and 3 billboards thing. Maybe I'm just out on my own island, way out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know, but yeah. Anyways, so yeah, and especially for me, once I saw that race factor in the movie, and it really came into view for me at the end of that third viewing, it really made me appreciate the movie more, and I already loved it. So yeah, this is that's it makes me want to watch it again now. Maybe not right now, but like, I'll watch it after the Oscars and so on, and I'll be I'll be looking at it in that way now, and it's a totally different viewing experience, and it's definitely it changes your perspective on the movie, and it's already a good movie without that. So yeah. All right, guys. Yeah, I'll be back later this week. I'll have BAFTA predictions for all the categories over there. Yeah, we're not going to see too many surprises, but I have a couple weird theories that could come through on that. So we'll check you guys next time.